It's been a minute since we've talked about the upcoming Moto Razr 2023, but today we're going to go over what we already know about the Razr 2023 and then end with a brand new report, a really interesting report about another Moto foldable potentially coming very soon. So like I said, let's start off with that Razr 2023. And this is one of the renders that have been posted online based apparently on the actual design of the device. And what you can see here is quite striking. An absolutely massive cover display that actually has the cameras and the LED flash acting sort of as a punch out through that gigantic cover display. We've also seen renders as of late as to what the Z Flip 5 is meant to look like. And while its cover display is much bigger, it's definitely not in the same category of gigantic and monstrous as what we have here with the Razr 2023. And we, like I said, got these first leaks all the way back in February. And then in March, we actually saw a photo of this device. I don't know how exactly this photo was leaked, but we got this photo revealing a really nice looking red color. And I believe, at least not seeing that cover display isn't what we've just saw, not totally confirming it because it would need to be turned on. But this does look like it could easily be a screen. At minimum, it's glossy glass, but I do believe that could also be a screen. So that could be very much confirming that earlier picture. As for the specs of this thing, we are supposed to be seeing the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. We'd like to see the 8 Gen 2, but it may be the 8 Plus Gen 1 instead, which might not be a terrible thing, and it might help keep the price down a little bit. There are rumors that are somewhat unsubstantiated of a 64 megapixel primary sensor being paired with a 13 megapixel ultrawide and a 32 megapixel selfie camera. So on paper, a decent looking camera setup. A 3640 milliamp hour battery, which is not bad at all. It is split into two halves. There were earlier reports the battery was going to be very small, but that was only counting the one battery and not adding the second one to it. Apparently it charges at 30 watts. The screen is expected to be somewhere around 6.7 inches with at least a 90 hertz refresh rate. I've even seen mentioned 144 hertz. Now, on to the new bit of information. There is now word that Motorola is not only set to launch as soon as June the Moto Razr 2023, which will now be called the Moto Razr Plus or the Moto Razr 2023 Plus, something like that. But they might also be set to launch a Razr 2023 Lite, which you can see a render of on screen now with a much smaller sort of Z Flip early era version cover display. Now, these renders are apparently based on very low quality prototype photos, so some of these details may be subject to change as time moves on, but this should be round about what this device will look like. We don't know much more than what you can see in these pictures, right? A couple of cameras on the back, a very small cover display, which should bring the cost down. Hole punch selfie. The bezels look maybe a little bit thicker than before. Perhaps this is a lower refresh rate, maybe 90 or something like that. Perhaps this is again like an earlier version of the Razr running a 7 series, a mid-range processor. Heck, maybe it's running a MediaTek processor or something like that, again to help keep that price down. Again, we just don't have much more on it other than it is coming, and they think maybe as soon as June for an announcement of this thing. Now, another thing to keep in mind here is that the Razr 2022 was originally released in China, and it took a few months before it got its international release, but of course it has not been sold in the United States. So there may be reason to think that the 2023 will follow that same path, which will keep it from being something you can walk into your local T-Mobile store and buy on contract or something like that. You may have to wait for an international release and then import it, and it should work okay at that point, but you're going to have to pay a little bit more because you're importing, and things get a little bit tricky that way. Hopefully, Razer was just taking sort of a brief hiatus in China with the 2022, and the 2023 will be back in the United States again, because I know a lot of people were very disappointed by that happening. Personally, I'd love to see that happen because we need more competition in the flip phone world, right? We're about to be getting several folding phones to compete with the Z Folds here in the United States with the Pixel Fold, the OnePlus Z Fold as well, but we don't have a lot of flips. So having another flip competitor here, but not just one, but actually a second one that's a budget version, a cheaper version. How cheap might it be? We don't know. Under $1,000, $700, $800, that would be a really nice place for this thing to be. And like I said, put a little bit of pressure on the Z Flip 5 when it does come out probably this fall as well. Guys, I'll drop a link to this Twitter thread down below so you can see all those images yourself. There's also a link to the source of the Razr Lite news story at the very bottom of that, so you can go check that out for yourself as well. Subscribe for more straight to the point content just like this. I'll see you on the next one, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.